Notts Forest and their army of 4,000 footballers come to Kenilworth Road on Saturday afternoon for a massive Premier League game of football to preview Luton Town versus Notts Forest. I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe alongside me. Jimbo, this is it, isn't it?
This is the season. This is the biggest game of the season, and you just got to do it by hook or by crook.
We'll preview that big game after this intro.
Can you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. As I said before the intro, myself and James previewing Luton against Notts Forest. Absolutely colossal game of Premier League football. There will be a situation whereby people will come out and say, James, that avoiding defeat is the must aim of this game, but it just feels like this is the game that we have to win, really.
Everything's there in front of Luton, and Luton know what they have to do. Doing it's going to be the hard part, but you have to throw everything at this. And there ain't much in the tank, and there ain't much to throw at it. But whatever Luton have has got to go on this game, because you ain't going to get many better chances with the amount of games left in the Premier League to leapfrog the team nearest to you and put them under serious pressure and relieve some of yours. It is a game of the magnitude, I think, by the time it comes around, may even be bigger than the playoff semi-final at Kenilworth Road last season. It's huge.
Well, we didn't bust our balls in that playoff semi-final to just surrender meekly in this Premier League season, and they've not done that at any point, and they're not going to do it at any point. Obviously, we've already played them once. That was under a different manager. Steve Cooper was their manager then. They've now got Nuno in charge. Steve Cooper did us a right turn, didn't he? He took a load of players off at 2-0, thought that the game was done. But we didn't read that script, pulled it back to 2-2. But they're a different side under Nuno. Of course, they're a different side under them. Nuno plays counter-attacking football. I'm not altogether convinced he's much of a manager. I think he's massively flattered by that job he did at Wolves when he just signed every Jorge Mendes player going in the Championship and took them up. Fair play, he had a couple of good seasons in the Premier League with them, but when you got Ruben Neves and a couple of others in the centre of your midfield, you're going to have a good season in the Premier League. He's got nothing like that in this Notts Forest team, and it's showing, isn't it? Lost the last 3 1-0. You know, I keep on seeing it appear on social media that they're whinging about refereeing decisions here, there and everywhere.
Nottingham Forest fans whinging. Oh, you do surprise me.
No, I think it's players as well as fans.
Fans,
it's obviously a club epidemic.
Honestly, the amount of whingers we had in the YouTube comments of the last game. If you're there again, hello. We're going to call you Knots all throughout the fucking podcast because we want to. We know it annoys you. Jesus.
Are you bringing up the Christmas song, or am I?
Well, you may as well. Get all the insults out of the way first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring your mulligan tire.
Yeah, it's a massive game of football. It's a massive game of football because of the way the league table is. So the equation is simple. We win, we come out the bottom 3. We don't win, we stay in the bottom 3. But what makes it a big game of football, Jimbo, is the 2 that follow. I don't think too many are expecting us to go to Tottenham or Arsenal and get anything. Having said that, Tottenham keep on winning games late. You know, even the Crystal Palace, the week before we played Crystal Palace, their 3 goals came very, very late in the piece. And Arsenal are going for title, and around about this time last year, they started feeling the pressure. So obviously we'll deal with those games when they come along. But I think the general consensus is we're on bonus territory getting anything from those 2 games, which makes this one massive because it could be the only time that we can get some points in the next 3 games. Therefore, we really have to win to go above them.
Yeah, and the general consensus, I think, because of those 2 hard games coming up after this game, is that Forest probably have the easier running. I'm not completely sold on that one. There's some very winnable games for Luton at home, but that is accounting for Luton having a full strength squad, and as we know, they're nowhere near. I mean, it's beyond threadbare, isn't it? It's Bob Cratchit levels of poor. The resources they've got at their disposals, they are struggling for bodies, and that is going to make Saturday so much harder. And in all honesty, everybody's disappointed after the Bournemouth game, us two included. I think we held it together just about in the review podcast. But, I've gone from raging to optimistic, And now, whatever you're feeling about that one, I think you've got to put it to side and just force yourself, however you can, to be as optimistic as possible. And if you're going to the game, that has to start with everyone in the crowd. None of this quiet shit. It has to be loud as fuck. And I'm talking Watford and Sunderland levels of last season. And if they haven't done it already, the club want to be announcing it's 2 for 1 drinks, and you get down there early, you get tanked up and you get leery and you make it hostile, because never in my Luton watching career have I thought that they're going to need the crowd that much. It's talked about all the time, but they have got players out on their feet, no options to change. This needs to be fought. This whole entire match needs to be fought on a wave of emotion, because that's the only way.
It does. Yep. So we've kind of got a similarity here, Jimbo. So let me take you back to the last time Notts Forest came to Kenilworth Road. Good Friday, 2 seasons ago. Town didn't have a defender for love nor money. It was fullback, midfielder across the back line. It was central defender in Cal Naismith playing the holding midfield role. There was no players fit whatsoever. It was Nottingham Forest were surging, automatic promotion candidates, or so they thought. But we don't read scripts like that, do we? Cal Naismith penalty 1-0, thanks very much. And that was when they had Brennan Johnson, before they tried their hardest to hold on to him and avoid a points deduction. No Brennan Johnson this time. But they do have some good players. I think Rob said it after the game on Wednesday night. There's very much similarities to this Notts Forest side as there were to the Bournemouth one in terms of their last line. And Taiwo Awoniyi didn't play at their place, and we thought that was a right touch, only for Chris Wood to go and score a couple of goals. But I would imagine he's going to play this time. He didn't play at Brighton didn't start at Brighton on Sunday. Chris Wood started, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. He has a very good goal scoring record, this boy, and we need to get into his head as fans and as players and stop him feeling comfortable.
Absolutely. Without walloping the guy, like literally walloping him, it's got to be Diallo treatment, really. I mean, I can't stress it enough. Don't wallop Nottingham Forest players.
To be fair, you're a brave man if you wallop him anyway, the size of the boy.
Yeah, you break your hand. But give them hell, honestly. It has to be the worst place they've ever been in their entire life. Hell.
Yep, he's got a good goal scoring record. I would be absolutely amazed if he's not leading their line. They're a bit of a kind of cheat code, this lot, aren't they? Because they got 3 players in behind him, Morgan, Gibbs and White. I jest, of course, he's the one player. But they spent better part of 40 million on him and crying now that it's got them into trouble with their PSR, aren't they? He's a good footballer. I'm not overly sure he's a £40 million footballer, but he's a good footballer and he'll pull the strings. Please let there be Sambi to mark him out of the game. Someone needs to.
Yeah, but who it's going to be, I don't know. He's a quality player. It is a concern, because where they are with that strike force, they probably shouldn't be. But then again, Luton have scored 16 consecutive games, can score no trouble, and hopefully they do again. just can't keep him out, and maybe that's the issue. But he's a very good player. He's got a decent shot on him, and he just strikes me as one of those players that always will fancy it against Luton. So you've got to put him off his stride in whatever way possible, and I'm glad I'm not having to solve that problem
in such a short space of time as well. Yeah. The other threat's going to come down the flanks. I mean, we've just seen Semenyo tear us a new one. And they're going to do the same, aren't they? Neither Alanga or Callum Hudson-Odoi started at the weekend at Brighton. I can only assume that was with this game in mind. So one, if not both of them, are going to start down the left and the right. They're both pacey. They're both tricky. They're both good. We've come up against Hudson-Odoi in his Chelsea days. We haven't come up against Alanga yet, but I'm sure... at Kenilworth Road we haven't. We came up against him at their place. Fullback's going to have to be on top levels, aren't they? I mean, this is going to be hard for Alfie if he is Alanga down that side. He's probably the better of the two in terms of natural pace and getting in behind, whereas Hudson-Odoi is more of control and sort of plays his way through rather than sprints his way through. So they've got this, like I just said, they've got the same threats that Bournemouth had, and we couldn't cope with them in the second half when they fancied it.
And that's the worry, because all you have to do if you're Nuno is just play a highlights package of that second half and say that's how you get at Luton. Hopefully they've regrouped after that game, and there was an element, certainly because of Bournemouth's early goal, that they just rode this wave of expectation and optimism, and that can happen in football. But if you make it scrappy at the weekend against Forest and don't give any of those inroads, then that could be a benefit. But Alanga looks rapid, and that's a worry. And I've even in the first podcast when I was giving Nottingham Forest some credit, it was, I don't know how they managed to pinch him off Chelsea for as little money as they did Hudson-Odoi, that is. So yeah, for all respect for that forward line, and you have to even give respect to Chris Wood after what he did up at the City Ground to Luton. And let's be honest, if they put him on the pitch against Luton, we're going to be fearing every single cross that goes in anywhere near the box with him, and so it's scary times. Which is why we are really down to this. We were down to the bare bones, but you're down to this, the idea of these football cliches of put them off their stride any which way you can, because it's sort of desperate times call for desperate measures, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't need to mention anything about leaving it all out there or anything like that. These boys do it every single week, and they're not going to do it in the biggest game of the season. They'll leave everything they've got out there. The question is, how much have they got? And
that's the thing.
Obviously, they've got to come back from the abject disappointment of Wednesday in a short space of time. They've not had a full week to recover from that. But generally, when these boys are given a knockout blow or a seemingly knockout blow, they come back and they show that it's, they can get up Tyson Fury style and keep on fighting. So we've just got to hope that we can do that. We're obviously recording this before Rob's press conference on Friday, as we always do, so that we can get this out with some sort of advance notice for you, particularly in light of the fact that it's 3:00 on Saturday, not a great deal of time to watch this one. So we don't know what we're like with regards to personnel or anything like that, but we can surmise what we think. I would be absolutely staggered if Tahith Chong has recovered from something that takes him off from a game that was getting away from us, and a game that he was having a really good impact on in the space of, 60 hours, give or take, that he's recovered enough to go again. If he has, fair play to you, Tahith Chong. That's, putting yourself on the line, and that's obviously what we need to do. I just can't see it. The boy looked in absolute agony as he walked past me, having left the pitch on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and he was down twice and looked very in huge amounts of discomfort. So we have to wait and see on what that is. But it
is an army area, isn't it? We're not talking hamstrings or any of that. We're looking at some sort of army area. So I'm sure if he can play, he'll put himself out there to play. But if it's a collarbone sort of thing or some sort of dislocation or something like that, not in 3 days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I'd have to check the law book on what you can wear if it's, say, a broken arm, because you should
Bit of plaster cast.
should be able to play. Should be able to play with a broken arm, but you definitely ain't going to play if you've got a broken collarbone.
No.
And that's the issue. And if it is a collarbone, then
He's
out for the season,
done.
and that's another one. And it becomes even more desperate in terms of resources. So yeah, we really sweat on that one. Who knows if Gabe will be back? It'd be a hell of a shout if he is, because then it's defensive reinforcements, isn't it?
If he can give us anything, have we just got to play him? There's 2 weeks after this one. Have we just got to take the risk?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those calls, and it depends what the injury is, because if it's a knee, that could be a very long time coming back. He was also suffering from a muscle problem as well, but I don't know what he's aggravated there. But the fact that he was on benches as a token gesture, really, just before he got injured, and then he's done something as well, and he's off, and he's not even in the squad, then suggests to me that we've had no luck for a month or more now on injuries. It's just got worse and worse and worse. So at which point do you make it that you've just got to go on in there and try? I mean, what sort of percentage you're giving it? It's because it could be lasting damage. Who knows?
Yep. We had positive in the week. Sambi's posted another picture on Instagram. I've got to be honest, these pictures are starting to kill me with hope. As much as I'd love to see him on a piece of grass, it's not the piece of grass I really want to see him on. Yeah. But where are we? He's clearly close. Yeah. They wouldn't allow him to post that picture if he wasn't anywhere near close. They'll have had that wiped off. Or even if he has posted it, someone will have clipped him around the ear and said, get that off, sharpish. So he's got to be close. Now, he can't play against Arsenal after the international break. He can play the Tottenham game, but he can't play the Arsenal game. In fact, he'll be right up for the Tottenham game, given who he currently plays for. So in light of the fact that he can't play the Arsenal game, effectively, if he doesn't play on Saturday, he can only play one game in the next 4 weeks. Therefore, if he's only at 60, 70% and can only give us 50 or 60 minutes, have we just got to say, look, Sambi, we've got to take this risk, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, this is the situation we're in. In every other scenario, you'd say no. You don't risk somebody's health like that. But what are the other options? There aren't any. There simply aren't any. So if it's 60, 70,
30,
maybe
30, if we get into a position where we were on Wednesday night, and then he comes on for the last and shuts it down. If he can even do that, listen, we're speculating. We don't know what he can do, but if he can give us anything, no disrespect to the youth teamers, the 3 youth teamers that are on the bench, if he can give us anything, he's just got to replace one at the very worst, because even if we can just throw him on for 10 minutes just to shut the game down or anything, it could work.
Yeah, we're in that world now where these calculated gambles may have to be considered. And I don't want to be in that world, but that's where we are. This game is so big. It's so important. Because after the Bournemouth game, I'm thinking we may have to rely on points deductions here, but you've got an opportunity not to, and you've got to try and take that. It may still come down to that, and it'll be nasty and messy. But it's not Luton's fault that they suffered these charges, and we await what they are. But if Everton's anything to go by, the precedent should be 6 at least. But then Everton said they cooperated and admitted it, didn't they? And I don't think that's the same case as Forest yet. It hasn't really come out yet, so I'm not really up on it. But they're facing a charge, and if it's proven, then it's point deductions. And who knows then? But you can't let it get to that stage.
It only gets to that stage if we lose this game.
Yeah.
Right? If we don't lose this game, we're still 3 points behind them, and we've got 2 mighty tough games to come, but we're still within reach of them. If we lose this game, we're 6 behind. they'll have stolen a leap on the goal difference front as well, and we've got these 2 games to come. Then we are kind of looking at either reeling in Everton, or we're looking at points deductions. Now, if we stay up by points deductions, then we stay up by points deductions. As long as we stay up, then that's it. Because like you just said, we're playing by the rules. If these teams aren't, fuck them, quite simply.
Absolutely.
But we don't want it to come to that. And the reason why we don't want it to come to that is because the more you hear about these things, the more this isn't going to get finalised until after that Fulham game. And no one wants to go into that Fulham game not knowing where you are or who you are. That's why Rob's league table has never had a points deduction on it. He wants us well and truly out of it before this gets anywhere near courts. And it's going to be sorted in courts. It's not going to be sorted out next week, next month, or any time. It's going to get sorted out once the season's finished, and we cannot put ourselves in a position, if we can help it, whereby our fate is in the hands of an appeal committee who are going to be influenced going into that appeal in much the same way that the Everton ones are, because they're not going to be shut off from the media. As I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, they're going to have to listen to all the bollocks that get spoken about. Oh, well, we tried to do this. Oh, well, we didn't quite do that. Bullshit. You broke the rules. But they're going to come up against that. We cannot let ourselves get in that position. That is why this game is must win.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near a points deduction decision, and it isn't there at the moment, so we've got to do everything we can, which is why I say the crowd have really they've got to be on top of their game, like the biggest game, much more than playing that lot down the road, which ultimately was just bragging rights, although it on the way to promotion, and and more than Sunderland somehow. It's really that big. And if you want extra motivation, yeah, look, we just talked about points deductions, and if they've broken the rules and they get punished, fuck them. But I will also want to point, I don't imagine this is going to come into any equation of Rob talking to the players about it. It won't bother them. But this means a lot to people and fans. If you want any more motivation to scream and shout your head off against this team, it's this story that's come out this week about Nottingham Forest being one of the 10 clubs that have voted against or actively working against any money being trickled down from the Premier League to the rest of the Football League pyramid. And considering Nottingham Forest spent 24 years in the Championship, which is many of their fans and many of other fans live in memory, not the 2 European champions, not the 2 European championships, not the league titles under Brian Clough. Many younger fans will have only known the second and third tiers of English football. And so for them to have spent not even 2 seasons in the top flight and then vote that down is a massive dereliction of their duty towards that pyramid that they've come from.
And could be 2 months away from needing a handout in
Exactly.
again.
So if anything, any motivation you need to send that lot who are up for charges anyway, send that lot down to the Championship to get a taste of the medicine they're trying to dish out to everybody else, then you got to take it.
Is that what they call poetic justice?
You call it what you like, but the thing this week has really pissed me off, and maybe we'll go into a deeper dive about that in other podcasts, but you could expect it from teams that have always been in the Premier League. They've been mixing it with the hoi polloi for most of their times, and they're sold on the idea of the Premier League. They've drunk the Kool-Aid. They're up there. But Nottingham Forest to be in that mix and say, we don't want to give any money to the Football League, it's an absolute disgrace, And so even if that gives you an extra couple of % of bile and vitriol from the stands, and use it.
Yeah, we will cover that. We will do some sort of deep dive in the international break, I would imagine, and hopefully more noises come out with regards to exactly why some of these teams have turned that down. If Osho's not fit, do we go back to do we go to a back four? Rob's alluded to it in a couple of press conferences, so they're clearly working on it. He wouldn't allude to it if it's not something that's in the pipeline? Have we just got to go to a back four? Have we just got to say, look, much like we said in that Bournemouth review, attack's the only form of defence. We'll just put 4 there, and we'll put the extra attacking player on, who would probably be a Townsend or a Woodrow, and we'll just go, fuck it. We've got to give this a right good go. That's pretty much where we're at now.
Well, it's that, or you stick with a 3, and maybe you just got to say it's not for Hashi, that position. Get Pelly in there. I mean, Pelly's had to sit on the bench, bide his time. For the longest time, he's not had massive influence over this Luton Town team, where he has all through the pyramid. He's been there, and he's been, one of the talisman. And maybe just if fairy tales are being written, he comes in and he does it in a position that he hasn't played since he was a teenager.
If he plays this game and he scores a Pelly banger, I'll go down there and shift the fucking dirt itself for his statue down at Power Court, and I'll start building the sodding thing, because that will just cap it.
Yeah.
That will just cap it all off. We're knackered in forward areas as well. That is, of course, on the assumption that Eli Adebayo's not fit. It's gone way too quiet for me to think that he's going to be fit on Saturday. The previous social media posts from Sambi had himself and Eli in it. They're now just solo ones, aren't they? I might be playing 2 and 2 and getting 5 when it should be 4, but I don't think so. It's the vibe I get, he's not going to be fit.
It's mad to me that Elijah's not the player we need back. Really, if you can only have one, then it's not Elijah, and that's because Luton have shown that they can score without him. I mean, I want him back because he's a threat, and he was in the form of his bloody life. But if you can only have one, then the bargain is Sambi.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, no question about that. That is for sure. You've already mentioned how we beat this lot. They're another team, and there are plenty of them in the Premier League, that are absolutely abysmal defending set pieces. Now, you wouldn't think it of a Notts Forest side, would you? You'd have, particularly a defensive-minded coach like Nuno, who likes to sit back and hit teams on the break. You'd have thought the very fundamental of that kind of thing is that you can defend your box, but their defending of set pieces, every single time I watch them, they look a basket case, and then you watch them against Brighton, the goalkeeper punches the ball into the defender that's right in front of him, that ends up in the back of the net. He doesn't look particularly shaky. He's only in there because Turner looked even more shaky prior to him arriving. And, the set piece threat has to be there, doesn't it? They're not the biggest centre-backs, to be fair. They've got that Murillo, haven't they? That is a ball-playing guy that they all really, really like. And then Niakate, I think, is the other one alongside him. He's got the long throw. We ain't going to get much joy out of that, is he, at Kenilworth Road? He's only got one stride that he can use for a run-up unless it's lined up with the tunnel. They haven't got the tallest centre-backs, so it's very much similar to the other night. You just got to pepper them with crosses and get your men in the box and get some joy. Set pieces or open play, and that's why Townsend comes right into this game for me.
Yeah, me too. Nothing really changes from an attacking perspective. That is not the issue. The goals are coming. You don't go to Bournemouth and score 3 in the first half if you ain't got something about you. Even when let's be honest, but Bournemouth had their chances and they had a lot of the ball in that first half. So it wasn't like Luton having it all their own way, but they were just, for once, ruthlessly efficient on the counter-attack. They've been talked of all season about the set pieces and the crosses into the box, and that's how you get goals. That does not change from an attacking perspective. It's just, how the hell do we stop conceding goals? That's it.
Yep. One way we might stop is keeping the ball, because we're going to have lots of it, because they are going to sit deep. They are going to look to counter-attack us. They are going to play Sheffield United way. This time we have to get this ball moving quicker. We have to take a few more risks with the ball without opening ourselves wide open. But we have to learn from that Sheffield United experience and, make sure that we open the game up a little bit, whether that's in the first half or the second half. We have to have that intensity, that tempo, that speed of thought, that speed of movement, and everything that goes with it. We didn't have it against Sheffield United. But we need it here, and we need it more than ever here.
Yeah, exactly. And that, unfortunately, my worst fears about the Forest game were realised with that second half comeback at Bournemouth, which is that Forest don't have to win this game, do they? They can come and they can spoil it, and they can hit on the break and hit on the counter with absolute confidence that they may get one or two, because that is what's happened so often. It happened against Sheffield United, and once they've got one, they can sit back. Two, man, that is the Everest of climbs. You're not getting back on that. So there's that thing. And if you're drawing comparisons to the Sheffield United game, then again, I come back to the crowd. You've got to be noisier than that game. You've got to. And if they do go 1-0 up, my God, the noise has to go up. But everybody has to be bang up for this. No complacency whatsoever. Yes, there's worries that Luton's season could be slipping away from them for reasons that aren't their football abilities, because of the injury crisis and not having the players to cope. But you've got to put all that aside for once and just, be noisy.
Be very noisy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, we are playing a side who haven't scored a goal in 3 games. So
that worries me.
And me.
That worries me a hell of a lot.
And me. But as good as they are, supposedly up front, on paper, they've gone 3 games without scoring. Okay, you look at the 3 games, Man United, Liverpool and Brighton, but we scored against all 3. So you can score against those sides. It's not like you can't score against those sides. And they're probably still whinging about the Liverpool goal, aren't they, where the ball got dropped in the wrong area about 5 days before Liverpool scored their winning goal. I know they're whinging that the Brighton bloke didn't get sent off last week, but I don't hear too many people moaning that their bloke who was on a yellow card and then wiped the Brighton player out didn't get sent off. But hey, of course.
Listen, again, none of that surprised me whatsoever after the amount of Notts Forest fans that got onto the comments of the YouTube episode we did last time round. That by far and away, they may be down the bottom of the Premier League, but they are top for the amount of whingers.
Yeah, they are. There's no getting away from that. Yeah, it's pretty much. Let's have that first half of Wednesday, and then just let the crowd ride it for the second half. That's what we need. With that in mind, I mean, you've mentioned one way of getting that atmosphere going. Getting a few sherbets down a few necks at half price, which would be lovely.
Yep.
Is the other way to do it, and I don't want to sound crass here, and I understand that we're talking about bigger than just a game of football here, but ultimately we need everything we can get in our advantage. Is the other way of getting the crowd out here by having Tom Lockyer on the bench on Saturday. Not on the bench to come and play. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in that mood. But if I take you back to the League One winning season, Alan Sheehan was a massive part of that dressing room, but he was injured towards the end of it, and he was on the bench, wasn't he? He wasn't on the bench to play, but he was on the bench in a encouraging, sort of helping capacity. Yeah. And it worked perfectly. We went on and won the league. Now, I know Tom's a new dad and he might not want to do this. I'm sure he would, though, because if he comes back and plays football, he'll want to be a Premier League footballer rather than the Championship one. That option's open to us. Do we bring Tom Lockyer out with the coaching staff to sit on the bench, even if he just sits there and watches the game on the bench? The mere fact that he'll walk out of the tunnel right across the pitch to that the dugout will get the whole of the Luton crowd lifted in an instant. You saw it on Wednesday. You saw it when he came out against Brighton, and look at the impact it's had. 3-0 at half-time in both games. Is this the ace card now that in this game of poker we've got to play?
Well, listen, I know how hard it is to be a father for the first time. The sleepless nights are a killer. So, yeah, his absolute priority has got to be...
And no one's disputing that.
No, absolutely not.
If he doesn't want to do it, that's fine.
No, absolutely.
But the question surely has to be posed, can you come and help? Because these boys take inspiration from him, right?
Yeah.
You just look at it. The Newcastle game after he collapsed, the inspiration they took. The Brighton game when he came, it was clear for all to see. What were we, 2-0 up after 140 seconds or something stupid? The other game that he's at the other night, We're 3-0 up at half-time. He's clearly an inspirational figure in that dressing room. We've at least got to pop the question to him. Come and inspire us, Tom, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least you can do is ask. Like I was going to say, I mean, his absolute priority, and it's completely right, should be his new baby daughter, and his missus is just given birth. Obviously, that's the absolute priority. But if there's any hope that he could be there, then yeah, I think the entirety of Kenilworth Road would be lifted. And yeah, like you say, it's a good shout, that example of Sheehan, because you know, every little helps at this stage, really does. And yeah, all I'll say is that if I see him come out, I'll be happy.
Exactly. You know, even if you just use him if the crowd goes a bit quiet, just step out of the dugout and shout an instruction or something. Someone will see it and start, oh, Tommy, and it'll fester around, won't it? And it's just a card that we might not want to play from a humane nature, but it's a card that is up our sleeve that it might just be worth trying to play. I don't know. Maybe I'm being insensitive. Wouldn't be the first time I've been insensitive, let's be honest, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it a card worth playing? Should we play it? Should we ask the question, what should we do with that? Because ultimately, we've rightly saved the space in the squad for him. He's not going to use that space in the squad. Of course he's not going to use it, but we've used it because of the inspirational figure that he is. So can we try and... He's absolutely fine and healthy. So can we try and use that inspirational figure in another way between now and the end of the season? Because we're not going to be able to use it in a playing capacity.
Oh yeah, no question about that whatsoever. But yeah, if it's an option that works for everybody, and it has to be working for everybody, because again, this is just a game. It's a game of football. It's a massive priority. You know, that's why we're talking about it in terms of the game of football and Luton's immediate future, not their long-term future. But he has a young family now, so that must come first. But if anyway there's an option for this to happen, then it could actually. It's these small little 1%, isn't it? It's the old British cycling effect, isn't it?
We'll worry about him when we play Man United again next season.
Well, yeah. Dave Brailsford. But yeah, that's what the Premier League is. It's these massively fine margins of success and not, as we've experienced so often this season. So if it's an option and it works for everyone, and I include in that his missus, because she's going to be sat at home with a new baby daughter, which is it was the most difficult things, far more difficult than a game of football. Then do it.
Yep. As I say, I hope I'm not being insensitive, but at the very least, I'd like the question to be asked, and if they get a negative answer, then that's fine. Because I just think it will give us a lift. And you're right with everything you said about the atmosphere. It needs to be raucous. It needs to be frenzied. It needs to be controlled frenzied, of course. But it needs to be everything that we can make it. And it's not. We've got no floodlight assistance, have we? This is Saturday 3:00, and if we're being honest, the last couple of three have been a little bit dead.
Yep.
3:00 on Saturdays, and this one can't be. This one needs absolutely everyone in that stadium to be positive, to be bouncing, to be loud, to be noisy, to be vociferous, to be intimidating, and all those other words that we've used regularly on this podcast over the last 12 months or so. And if we are all of that, and if we can take the lead and they can't therefore use their counter-attacking style, then who knows, we might just get them at it and come away with a massive win. We will finish this podcast off, as we always do, with our score predictions. This is getting harder and harder, Jimbo, and we're getting further and further away as it's getting harder and harder. Luton v Notts Forest, how does it end?
If you asked me yesterday, then it wouldn't have been an answer that anybody would have liked. But now we're talking about this, and I'm changing my own mindset to a positive one, which is not easy because I can be a curmudgeon. But I'm going to go for a 3-2 win.
Well, all of the best Luton Town wins are 3-2 wins, aren't they? Go right back through our history, they're all 3-2. I don't think this one will be 3-2. Jimbo, I hope you're right. To be honest, I don't care if you're right or wrong, as long as there's more numbers on the left-hand side than there is on the right-hand side of that hyphen. But I do think Luton will win this game. I think they'll give it absolutely everything. We all will as a football club. And if there's one thing in doing this podcast for 7 seasons that we've worked out, it's when these boys are at their lowest and supposedly written off. It's when they come out and fight their hardest. And for all Forest are good for their front four, there's a reason why they're 4th from bottom. I don't know what it is, but there's a reason, because that's not bottom 4, front 4. So I will go for 2-1 Luton. There have been some big 2-1 Luton wins this season. We'll add another one to it here. Thankfully, they haven't scored in the last 3, so we might keep them to 1. Otherwise, I might have been looking somewhere in the 6-5 scenario rather than 2-1.
But if that one is they score first, then please, please, please take that as your cue.
Be loud.
To lose your voice. If any of you got voices on the Sunday, you're doing it wrong.
Which means you're hosting the review podcast, because I might be in a little bit of audio disarray, so to speak. And I will come here and do if Luton win, I will come here with no voice.
You could just nod along.
I'll go into one of those voice machine things and record my voice and just play it, and you can have that. Now, if we win, we'll just pop one of the other ones on and go and replenish the voices and crack on, won't we? So that's it for us. 2-1 win for me, 3-2 win for James. Not as much time to get your own score predictions in for this one. Thankfully, no one said Bournemouth 4, Luton 3 in the lead up to that last one. So no shout outs. Not much time, but if you can get your score predictions to us, if you are right, then we will shout you out in the review podcast, assuming I've got a voice to shout you out with, which cannot be guaranteed, has to be said. On the bright side, the back's a lot better.
Good. Well, I want backs, necks, voices, heads, hearts, all to be aching in a good, positive way on Sunday. Needs to be done. Throw your back into it, lads.
Indeed, yeah. Let's have your score predictions and any other comments and things in line with the Tom Lockyer debate that I've just opened up, and anything about this game really. Is it must win? Is it must not lose? How do you sit on it? Let us know, and we'll debate the topics if there are any come up in the review podcast. That is it for this episode. You've obviously been subscribing in huge numbers. We will get around to doing one of those giveaways. There's so much media attention on the club at the minute that neither myself or James have got minutes to sort of do anything with regards to organising it. It is in the pipeline. We haven't forgotten about it. We'll get some great prizes sorted out, because you guys deserve great prizes, and we will get that done as soon as we've
got an international break coming up where we're going to need a rest. So there's some time to do something else other than come on here and do 3 or 6 podcasts a week or whatever we are number this week. But thanks for watching.
But rest assured, we haven't forgotten about it, and we will get that done and dusted as soon as we get a chance. Thank you for watching or listening, however it is that you've consumed this podcast. And thank you also to the Hightown Club for staging our studio as they always do, to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. If you have a ticket to Kenilworth Road in the home end on Saturday, leave everything you've got inside the beautiful stadium, because the 11 on the pitch to start the game and the 5 that are going to come on are going to need every single bit of noise possible. So whether you're still raging from Bournemouth, whether you're still not sure, just leave all the negativity at the turnstile and every piece of positive noise that you can make. The boys need every one of us, and hopefully together the players and the fans can do what we do best and lead these boys to a massive 3 points, so that James and I can talk about being out of the bottom 3 going into the international break. We can do this, but we need all of us. So until next time, which will be that review from James, from myself, come on, you Hatters, we can do this.
Believe it! We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.